Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. I'm Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. Our guest on the program this morning, we'll have our legislative check-in for the week as we'll talk to State Representative Ann Osmundson of Volga later on in the show. We'll start a monthly check-in with the Waukon Chamber of Commerce. Laddia Tallman, the Executive Director of the Waukon Chamber of Commerce, will be joining us here shortly. But we'll kick off our show this morning by talking to South Winneshiek Superintendent Kris Einck. That's right now on Our Town. Having a conversation now with South Winneshiek Superintendent Kris Einck. And Kris, your board made the decision earlier this month to continue face-to-face learning for elementary and middle school students on February 1st. How did the district, how did the board come to the conclusion to move ahead with the face-to-face learning here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, Darren. Well, we felt that with the data we were looking at in Winneshiek County, the data within our school district as a whole, we felt pretty good with the mitigation strategies that we've been exercising the entire year, that this was a good time to bring back the elementary, middle school students. We didn't do it right away. We were given a kind of a 2-week window before we would start that. That way, if parents had made preparations for daycare and such, that they could plan accordingly. So that was really what it boiled down to. We're sticking with the hybrid schedule for now at the high school. What I've told parents in our community the entire year is we continue to evaluate that. My hope is actually that we can have the high school back, everybody back by the spring. But there's two big differences between the buildings, and in which those differences kind of allow one building that we're going to bring back to do that, and that is the fact that we've got them in cohorts, 3 different cohorts, and we've got them in pods. They eat lunch in their room. So everybody's wearing masks like we always have been. Everybody's practicing, good sanitary practices as far as washing hands, sanitizer, all that type of thing. But then we can really kind of social distance and keep groups together. So if we do have any type of an outbreak, that we can limit it to one class or a grade. Whereas at the high school, it's really difficult to do something like that. We only have about 195, 200 kids in the high school. We're not that big, but at the same time, in order to social distance and really try to protect people as much as possible, it's pretty hard to do that. So that's why we're going to stick with the hybrid. At the high school, we can cut it down to half of the kids in the building. We pretty much give our high school students about every option out there. They can go hybrid. They can, if they want to come back full-time, face-to-face every day, we allow it. If they want to go full-time online, we allow it. So we feel like we're being pretty flexible here at the high school as well, with the hope that eventually we can get everybody back here face-to-face sooner rather than later.
Of the kids at the high school, how many have chosen to do the face-to-face? How many have chosen to do hybrid? How many have chosen to do full distance learning?
Yeah, I don't have those exact numbers off the top of my head, but just to kind of give you a rough number, I would say we're probably 60% hybrid, and then maybe 20 and 20 as far as the online and the face-to-face.
When you look at how things have gone with the educational model that you've had since August, are you pleased with how things have gone? Have they gone as well as could be expected, knowing the fact that this is still a relatively new thing for most people in education?
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking back, I really feel strongly that I don't know if we really would have made many changes, Darren. I think we've done everything, and I don't want to come off arrogant or cocky. I just really feel like we've done everything in our power to make sure that we're protecting the students and the staff, making sure that we have a safe environment here, and making sure that we're giving students and families options that they can choose from. depending on their situation. So, really right now, no. Looking back, I think we've really tried to go above and beyond with our return to learn plan.
And when you look at just educationally, when it comes to progress, especially of the younger kids, and you go all the way up to the high school end of things, how is there benchmarks in place to measure like how well your kids are doing and progressing, or will this kind of be a little bit of a multi-year process, knowing the fact that things were disrupted for everybody?
Yeah, I think it will be kind of a multi-year process. I'm really hoping that we can come back in the fall and things can be relatively normal. As far as it's difficult because like at the high school, because of all the options we've allowed, we've been, when you've got students online, we're doing open book tests. We're trying to be as flexible and really thinking about our students as much as possible. Now, does that mean that we don't want to eventually get everybody back here and try to get back to some sense of normalcy? Absolutely. But at the same time, we do realize that this is not a perfect system right now. We're kind of doing what we have to do based on the circumstances that we're in, which is a pandemic. And so we'll have to continuously evaluate that. Like you said, try to find those benchmarks where we're at. We're trying to make sure nobody falls between the cracks, through the cracks. But again, at this point, it's pretty difficult to really know for sure. We look at obviously our grades as far as data. We look at attendance as far as data. We didn't have our statewide ISASP tests last year. We're going to have them this spring. But again, I don't know, Darren, if that's really going to tell us much for a while. I mean, we took that test for the first time 2 years ago, didn't take it last year because we were shut down, and we're going to start it up again this year. So that's going to take us a little while before we get really any, in my opinion, any strong data from that. So it's just kind of one of those things where I think you're right. I think this is kind of a longevity. We're going to have to kind of ride this out and then see where we're at.
And I know one thing the state did give you the power to do is to have a little bit more control of attendance at high school activities. That came out about, I believe, a week and a half ago.
Yep.
What were you at when it came to high school activity attendance, and what are you doing now? Were there any changes?
Yeah, so I think that was that in November when they went to the two-ticket model, and we did that, and it seemed to work fine. And really, my hats are off to all of our fans. They've done a great job, following the mask mandate and understanding kind of the situation we're in. The bottom line is, and this is what I told everybody, we want to make sure we can have these events because it's all about the kids, first and foremost. And if we can have those events, that's what's most important. We want to have fans there? Absolutely. We've put streaming into place. Our IT department's done a wonderful job. We've got students that are actually doing commentating. So, folks for the most part can stay at home and view all of our events, which has been fabulous. Now the governor, I believe a couple weeks ago, changed it and basically opened things back up. And no, I take that back. There was a stretch there where then she opened up a little bit and said, I think it was right after break or winter break, that you could have, you had the 2 tickets plus you had people in the house, the family household. So then we were following those rules as well, which opened it up a little bit more. And then a few weeks after that, she opened it up and basically said, anybody can come. So we've had good attendance. People have respected the mask wearing, done a great job with that. We limited our concession stand. We're selling pop and basically prepackaged items. We're not doing the pizza and the popcorn and all that. And people done a great job. I really have to commend everyone. Everyone stepped up. I think they realize that first and foremost, we're here for the kids. It's all about the students. We want to make sure that while this has been disruptive, the pandemic that is, we want to make it as least disruptive as possible for the kids, so they can experience a somewhat normal high school year.
And I know, moving on from the COVID issue, district residents in your district are going to be going to the polls here in the not too distant future. It's probably not one of those referendums that gets a lot of attention or anything like that, but it's a very important funding stream for your district. Explain what's going on. When will your district voters go to the polls, and what will a positive vote do to help out the financial situation in your district?
Yeah, it's so we get what's called SAVE dollars. It's another acronym. You know, we in education love acronyms, Darren. And that SAVE stands for Save and Advance Vision for Education, okay? It was formerly known as the statewide school infrastructure sales and service tax, and then I think also the local option sales tax, okay? And monies received, those monies can go towards construction, repairs, demolition work, remodeling, just to name a few things. So back in 2019, legislation was passed which set the sunset for SAVE to January 1st, 2031. So we just want to vote to extend this, and we can do this anytime between now and January 1st of 2031. But when we do it, then the new sunset date will be January 1st, 2051. So I just really want to stress, this isn't a vote. This is a vote to adopt and extend our revenue purpose statement, which states how we spend our SAVE dollars. This does not raise taxes or change our tax rate at all, okay? We're going to receive the SAVE money regardless, but need to update the RPS, or the revenue purpose statement.
And when is that referendum going to be?
Yeah, I believe it is March. Got to look at my timeline here. It is the first Tuesday in March, Darren. The first Tuesday in March. So I don't know if that's, got my calendar here. Let me find it.
I've got my calendar out too. So who can get to it first? March 2nd?
Okay. It would be the first March 2nd. That's
Okay.
what I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure.
No problem, and we'll keep that in mind as the date gets closer. Of course, Iowa legislature recently underway. As a school district, what's your wish list for Iowa lawmakers this year? Well,
I'm hoping that they'll come through with a nice supplemental state aid. That would be really nice. You know, we did get a second round of COVID money. Stimulus money, I guess, and that's going to be very helpful. I think what's important for people to understand, though, with those dollars, there are restrictions on what you can spend, and that's pretty much related to COVID. And you have to be careful with those dollars too, because what you use it on, you want to make sure that it's a kind of a one-time expense. Because if you use it towards something that is a annual expense, that's what you call a funding cliff. And this money isn't, you know, we're going to get this money as a one-time deal this year, but then, you know, I don't anticipate we're going to get it after that. So that's really important for people to understand that while those dollars are coming in, they do put restrictions on how we use it. And so it's very, very critical that we put a lot of, you know, we're strategic and methodical about how we go about that.
Anything else we're missing as we have our conversation? Anything else the residents of the South Winneshiek School District need to know?
No, you know, just want to give kind of a shout out, a thank you to everybody. Everybody has been really gracious and great to work with, and I think very understanding of what we're going through. You know, everybody's in this together, and I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, which is good news. And I'm hoping that, you know, we're going to get this this vaccination process ramped up here, and we're going to get it so we can get things back to normal. And I'm hoping that we're going to have an early spring. That would be nice. I wouldn't mind mowing lawn in March. I could handle that. But no, just a big thank you to everyone, and I just we really appreciate their support.
All right, Kris, we appreciate you taking some time telling us what's going on in the South Winneshiek School District, and hopefully things moving in the right direction and things back to normal. But you guys still got a job to do, and you're still educating kids, and that's what it's all about.
That's right, Darren. You got it. It's all about the kids.
Kris Einck from the South Winneshiek School District joining us here this morning. Having a conversation this morning with Laddia Tallman. She is the executive director of the Waukon Area Chamber of Commerce. And Laddia, you started this job back in April. How challenging was it to establish yourself in this position at a time when the world really didn't allow a lot of face-to-face contact?
It was pretty hard. When I first started, I actually worked from home. And the biggest challenge I had was the only thing I could do for these businesses was to call them. And basically what I had to do was just see if there was anything that we could do, knowing that we really couldn't do anything. So, I mean, that really was a setback to start this position. When things opened back up in June, though, I did try to get out in the public a lot more and try to get into these businesses and see if there was anything I could try to do then. But pretty soon after that, we went back into another shutdown. So,
from a business perspective, in your mind, what was the biggest challenge that 2020 brought forth? And at the same time, what makes you most optimistic about the local business climate moving forward here in 2021?
I would say the biggest challenge, I'm not sure if this is a complete business aspect, but as a personal perspective, working at the chamber, it's just not being able to help our members as much as we could have been able to. There really wasn't much for us to be able to do. So I think the biggest thing that makes me optimistic about it is it feels like we've made it through the thick of it. So the 2 surge points that the COVID had to offer, and these businesses were still able to give their all and work and not give up. And they also had the amazing community support, especially when we had events. We had our holiday shopping, and the community actually brought in $36,000 during that. So to the participating businesses, and that was awesome.
And moving forward, what in your mind is one of the main lessons that the business community can learn from this situation? Because any situation, if you don't learn from it, you're not basically bettering yourself for the future. Is there a lesson that businesses can learn from this situation to better themselves moving forward?
I think moving forward, I think businesses should really just understand that this isn't a one-man show, that all their business partners, they need to rely on each other. And it could be very beneficial to work together and help promote these neighboring businesses. And a lot of the community members are helping out with that as well.
And getting back to the overall role of the Waukon Chamber, what would you say the mission, the role of your organization would be in general?
I think the biggest thing is we're just trying to support these community members and trying to get this, just help the business climate within Waukon. And like I said before, showing these businesses that they can work together and we can run events together to kind of help get more individuals into the Waukon community and try to bring more income into this community as well.
You've been on the job for about 9 months. What's been the best part of the job that you've enjoyed to this point?
I think the best part is just meeting everyone and then getting to hear about their stories, the new business owner stories during those first dollar visits, and seeing what their background is and how that's helped shape them today. And also just basically how they've overcome their situations and how they've grown. And it's going to be really awesome to kind of see how they can continue to grow within their business and their own personal life.
And what's been the biggest surprise about this job?
The work's never done. There's always something you can do to help yourself grow within this job. And there's always something that you can do to try to help these businesses grow, and just kind of brainstorming ideas to help with the business members and also to bring new things to Waukon to kind of help support the community as well.
When it comes to the events that the chamber has put on, what was your organization still able to do in 2020? And has the chamber been able to kind of be creative in the ways it provides services, knowing the fact that personal contact is little limited in these times?
So we've really been trying to think outside the box for events. There's been quite a few that we haven't been able to have, but we've been trying to put things in place of the ones that we haven't. So basically, we're just trying to put on events that if you go into a store, you're already planning to go in there, but you could get an incentive for doing that and punching a card. We've also tried to keep some of the main events, but we've had to alter them in a couple different ways, just less interaction. And then we've also tried to move things online. I know that's pretty difficult for some people, but we've been working to brainstorm a lot more ideas and to keep the community engaged when we do those online events. We're actually working towards our annual banquet, and we're brainstorming ideas for that and thinking about doing activity boxes during our meeting and things like that to keep the community involved.
And final question for you, what's your overall message to the Waukon business community? What's the overall message from the chamber to the community as we start a new year?
I just think we got to stay positive and realize that we need to work together and have this shared understanding that the businesses or the communities are going to come to these businesses if they see that there's a camaraderie between these businesses and that they can work together, and that just shows that they support each other. So then I feel like it'll relay back to the community members that they should support these businesses as well.
All right, Laddia, appreciate meeting you and getting to know you here this morning. Thanks for the time this morning, and let's make this a regular conversation about once a month this year. Good to know what's going on in the business community in Waukon, and good to support the local businesses because they're really the backbone of our community.
They are. Thank you so much for having me.
Laddia Tallman from the Waukon Area Chamber of Commerce joining us this morning. Having a conversation with State Representative Ann Osmundson from Volga, beginning her second term in Des Moines this year. And last week, the governor opened up, kind of from a formal standpoint, the legislative session with her condition of the state address. What, in your mind, were the main takeaways from the governor's condition of the state address last week?
Good morning, Darren. Well, you know, our governor is a very positive person, and I could hear that in her speech. We all know it's been a very difficult year, but she did encourage us with stories of resilience and people helping each other. I think she encouraged us to look at the past year asking, what's changed? What can I hang on to and improve? What can I get back? What can I bring back into my life that might make it a better? I mean, I want to get back to my old way of life, but yet I think there's things we learned that will make life better. You know, one other thing that I want to capitalize on that she mentioned was licensing reform. She stated that Iowa now has the most flexible licensing, reciprocity, and recognition laws in the nation. And this happened because of COVID. This would make it easier for people to move into Iowa and jump into work without going through a lot of unnecessary hoops. We've kind of talked about we need to maybe codify these changes. So, you know, there were some good things there. I like our governor. She's very positive.
One of the things she did bring up last week is basically wanting to give parents the option of placing their kids in face-to-face learning in these times or virtual learning should they choose, with really a kind of a desire from the state level to make sure as much face-to-face learning is taking place in K through 12 as possible. In your mind, should that be a state decision or should that be a local district decision?
Good question. But I feel like I could ask that question about businesses, churches, events. You know, the governor is the one that closed the schools to begin with in her proclamation of disaster emergency based on the information she was receiving. We need to see her move out of this state of emergency and transition back to normal. So yes, I guess I feel like she has the right to encourage face-to-face learning as much as possible.
Legislature got put on pause in March last year, and you pretty much didn't go back until June, and by the time you went back, you pretty much got the budget done, and that was going to be that. One issue that you touched on in our conversations last year was the bottle bill and potential reforms to that bottle bill, which is now over 40 years old in the state of Iowa. In your mind, is that something that potentially could see some changes out of this year's session, or is it going to be a lot of talk and no action like it has been in the past?
Yeah, that's another good question. You're right. We didn't get to discuss it last year. I understand that there are people working on various ideas. I am working on a draft that a colleague had filed last year that I thought had good potential. The problem is there's so many opinions on the subject, and if it's going to be hard to move forward. I understand they've been discussing it for several years, but hopefully we can have some good discussions and get the ball rolling this year. I know it's really an aggravation to people to not be able to redeem their cans and bottles.
And I know at certain times during the COVID-19 shutdown, there's limited places where you can go to redeem your cans and bottles right now, and it basically got down to none during COVID-19 restrictions in many places, especially in the rural parts of Iowa. Do you feel that situation perhaps can bring this issue a little bit more to the forefront, because we all tend to react to relatively current events and propose legislation that way as compared to just issues that have been there for quite some time?
You're absolutely right. Yes. Adversity brings out the things that have been a problem and magnifies them. And this definitely has been one of them. I understand there's grocery stores that are not taking cans and bottles back. So that issue will have to be addressed, because that's part of code that they're supposed to do that in certain situations. Now, whether the situations apply that they're able to not take them back, I've not checked into that, so I can't actually speak to that. But absolutely, I believe the pandemic has brought it to the forefront again.
Personally, what are your goals for this session?
I would like to see the bill passed that allows the public to decide whether abortion is found in our Constitution. A few judges have said that they find the right to abortion in our Constitution, and I just don't see it there. So if this amendment were to be added to our Constitution, it would give the people the voice on the issue, not just a few unelected judges.
With a hot button issue like that, and a similar bill that passed out of the legislature and was signed by Governor Reynolds a few years ago but struck down by the courts, how confident are you that whatever you pass related to that bill can withstand a legal challenge?
Well, it really shouldn't be a legal challenge, because this is a constitutional amendment, and we're following the process outlined in our Constitution for adding a constitutional amendment. So it doesn't seem like the courts would have any right, any authority to strike this down.
One of the big goals, in fact, the main job of lawmakers every year when you head to Des Moines, is putting together the budget with all the external factors related to the economy in the last 9 months. How big of a challenge will it be to put the budget together this year?
We've had a few talks around the budget already, and it doesn't seem that it's going to be much more challenging than in past years. Of course, I can say that. I'm not on the Appropriations Committee, but we are in decent shape because of conservative budgeting. Several years ago, the legislators passed a decrease in taxes if certain triggers were met. And again, the governor mentioned that in her speech, to remove these triggers so that allowing decreases to go into effect to help Iowans get back on their feet. So that tells me, too, that our finances are in pretty good shape. We have the Revenue Estimating Conference that has come out with a pretty decent report. I think we'll do okay. I don't think it'll be much more challenging than in the past.
And final question for you, will you have time to do a lot of things outside of COVID-related matters or the budget, or do you feel that there can be other legislation that can be highlighted and come to the forefront eventually this year?
Yeah, I think we're here to do our job. We've started off running. We've had subcommittees already, moving some of those bills into committee today. We plan to take up several bills that were left hanging from last year, and we're here to get as much accomplished as possible.
And appreciate your time. I look forward to having conversations with you throughout the legislative session.
Thank you, Darren. It's always good to speak with you.
And Osmundson, state representative from Volga, having a conversation live from Des Moines this morning. Our thanks to our guest on the program this morning, South Winneshiek Superintendent Kris Einck. Also, Laddia Tallman from the Waukon Chamber of Commerce and State Representative Ann Osmundson. Don't forget, each and every week we are now putting these shows on YouTube, so you can see our guest, most of them at least, and my face. Despite that, you should check it out anyway. We will put these up on the River Facebook page, and you can follow them along at that site. You can also follow those on my social media pages, which are Darren Swenson, DARINSVENSON, and I'm available on both Facebook and Twitter. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. We thank you to our guests. We thank you for tuning in or logging on to listen to Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.